And our guest this morning, he is no stranger to the program. He is Mr. Rodney Piggott, Chairman of Tobago CivilNet. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Sean. Good morning to your WESN staff and to your viewers far and wide.
So
Good morning.
Good morning. You've been watching the program so far. You just informed me that the Deputy Secretary was on another morning show this morning and was able to answer some of what the Prime Minister had to say. I wasn't able to see it. You saw it. So before we go into anything else, I'll just have to ask, how was her rebuttal to the Prime Minister's claims? Was it effective? Are you satisfied that she had something reasonable to say? And could you maybe tell us, some of what she said?
Well, yeah, thus far, I find it to be effective. It appears to be factual. The only way you can dispute what she said is if you actually are able to get the information related to the dates that she spoke of, because she went along her explanation based on a date-by-date type of information given. So it wasn't just statements that one could probably, say, hey, that sounds like opinion or things of this nature. She was actually giving dates and timelines, if you will. And timelines are very hard to dispute. So if the timelines are factual, right, and we in the public, Joe public, we have to presume, if you will, that the timelines are in fact factual, unless someone does some diving into those timelines and discover that they're not accurate. We just have to simply presume that they are in fact accurate. And if they are, then it really refutes a lot of what was said by the Prime Minister in terms of those timelines itself. In one aspect, and again, this is just fresh, I just heard it, it seemed as if the information that the chief administrator was going to be demitting office was sent to the Public Service Commission at least a month in advance, right? So like, hey, I'm going to be leaving in a month, so the information was there like a month in advance, and then she gives timelines of the chief secretary reminding the Prime Minister, look, we have to have this conversation about the chief administrator and so on and so forth.
But Mr. Piggott, she did give that yesterday as well. But my question is, where a timeline might matter to me is with regards to the timeline of the Prime Minister's meeting with the Chief Sec, where the Prime Minister claimed, we spoke about the candidates, no negatives were brought up. So as far as the Prime Minister is aware, the next in line person was going to just slot right into the spot. And and then did she say like a timeline to when the information, the decisions on the audit, which from what I understand, I just got like 5 seconds of it before during the break. This is the audit that the Chief Secretary engaged in, coming straight out of the elections. So to be fair, this is something that he pointed out from day one. But was there any timeline with regards to those events? Because I think that matters. That is to say, when was the Public Service Commission informed about the allegations, and how did that go down?
Right, and of course that part, she wasn't absolutely sure as to when that occurred. But the interesting thing that she would have spoken to is that the triggering of this this person who was next in line to be the chief administrator, that person's suspension, what actually triggered that was the chief administrator herself sending information to the Public Service Commission, as was her duty, once she got the audit information and read the audited information and saw in the audited information that she had a responsibility to respond to certain facts or certain statements in that audited statement, that may have involved the office of the chief administrator. And so, as she explained, one of the duties of the chief administrator is when they see, smell, taste anything that is questionable along those lines, they have a duty to just, in order to protect herself,
right,
is what I got. In order to protect herself and the office that she held at the moment, she had to notify the Public Service Commission that during the time of this particular office, these particular officers or this particular officer was in fact in the position to have either recognized something that was out of place if it comes to that conclusion that something that was in fact done wrong, that this person was in seat at that time. And whether, and it wasn't the accusation that, hey, this person did something wrong. It's simply this person was piloting or steering the ship during the time that it hit the iceberg, during the time that it run aground. This person was in charge, right? And then once the Public Service Commissioner got a hold of that information, they then had no other choice but to put that person on suspension until the investigation is done. So this person being on suspension had nothing to do, wasn't the, according to how the deputy chief explained it, it wasn't the chief secretary saying to the prime minister or saying to anybody, put this person on suspension. That is not the chief secretary's job. It was in fact the Public Service Commissioner who was then triggered by the then chief administrator sending them her report or her reply to this audit that this person was in fact in place during that time. Now, and then the Public Service Commissioner acted by putting that person on suspension.
I understand what you're saying. Procedurally, that is correct. And if the procedures are done by the book, then we won't necessarily have these questions. However, if, and again, this is why I did say, you know, maybe there's things that we don't know. I think a timeline with regards to those events, the meeting of the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary, right? Because it's not that the Chief Secretary didn't say anything, but it is claimed that the Chief Secretary knew of the issues, and one would think the consultation is to talk about, hey, we have these potential issues with this candidate, you know? I would imagine that's what it's there for. So I understand if it's done by the book, yes, I get it. But I think just the way how politics goes and the fact that information was not shared when it could have been shared to try to not take so long and then restart the process, the timeline would help. I don't necessarily know who it would help because it could help either side, right? And I think if neither side is willing to give us certain aspects of the timeline, then we're still gonna be wondering certain, you know, how exactly the thing go on. But I don't wanna, we don't have too much time left. I wanted to get into further things because Deputy Chief Secretary is talking, Chief Secretary is not talking. There have been other issues with government in Tobago. I have seen the statement that the CivilNet has published with regards to the recordings. So there are those concerns there, and there are concerns. Again, nothing is proven, but there are concerns. My main issue, kind of moving, trying to advance the conversation a bit now, and we've spoken a little bit about this off air. You know, what does it seem like with regards to progress on the island? Because one of the things is it that the THA executive is so busy trying to play defense and manage all of these public relations crises, but then the other thing, and I had this issue with the government as well, and I spoke about it yesterday. You don't tell us anything, so we're not necessarily going to know what you're doing well. And I think you alluded to this months ago, you know, a communication issue where they're not really communicating what it is that they're doing on their agenda very effectively. And now I do wonder, you know, are we really just seeing these issues compound and potentially sink the current administration?
Right. Well, let's keep in mind that this is a systemic problem. It's in the system itself, where proper communication and just sharing things with the public, accountability, and so forth. That has not been a hallmark of the THA. Going back to God knows how long, some would say. I've spoken to several individuals who are senior members in the community and who say that this has always been an issue. This communication, this transparency has simply not been there. And this is also national. It also moved one of our elders, Elder Reginald Dumas, who's an elder statesman in the space, to have brought a transparency agency here to Trinidad and Tobago to help the government with this transparency problem. So this is an issue that is it's a national issue, and it's been there for a very, very long time. It's not something that just started out. What we expected and what we still expect from this THA administration is to actually fix that particular issue. And one of the things they campaigned on and promised was to put a serious focus, shine a bright light on the communication and transparency issue. They even talked about a sort of like an e-governance portal where every decision that is being made in the THA, the public, civil society will have a window into that on a current basis, not after the fact. So if we're going to build a road over there, the public will be have a front row seat into those decisions being made, and every step of the way, every decision being made, every step of the way to that becoming a manifestation. Well, that has not yet happened, and we are not really seeing the evidence that this is being acted upon. I'm not saying that it is not being acted upon. Right. I'm just saying that we have not seen the evidence that it is being acted upon. Well, this, I think, is where the rubber will meet the road, is when this administration buckle down and get to fixing that transparency issue. Because we understand that governments must do what governments must do sometimes. And sometimes they have some very tough decisions to make. You know, we have, a glass over here that is half full, but over here is the glass half empty. And they have to make decisions that weigh things back and forth, that the public, if you leave it up to the public to make those decisions, everyone would be out for self. Well, give me mine, and so forth.
We have we have 1 minute left. I just wanted to ask, is it that because you said this is systemic and it's been a long time going, it makes me wonder if it's a deficiency in the local government public service of Tobago, to just kind of use a mishmash phrase, because I'm wondering if it's the bureaucracy in Tobago that's kind of failing the elected officials at this point. Could it be, though, that the current executive might have been captured by the system and now they don't necessarily know how to kind of, fight their way out of it?
Well, it's actually what I've said, and what I'm going to say again is that it's a national issue. It's a national issue because of the political system that's in place. The party politics that's in place has no guardrails, has no sort of constraints around it. So even in the Trinidad Center, when I say Trinidad, I'm talking about central government, not just the place, because central government is over both Trinidad and Tobago. That is our seat of government. If you see in that space, the UNC, who's currently the opposition, who fights down everything the government does, whatever they do, they fight it down. Mm-hmm. So that back and forth, that kind of fighting down and that kind of argument that goes on in the public space consistently is also taking place in Tobago. where you have the executive in place and you have the minority council, which is still the PNM, right? The PNM is using that minority council or having its voice heard through the minority council, which tends to kind of fight down just about everything the executive does, good, bad, or indifferent. You see, so the national issue is also the Tobago issue. What we expected from the Tobago sense now is that this fresh, new, and young and inexperienced, this was actually a drawing point to the public that these persons have not been politicians for umpteen years. So they're not going into that office with a lot of bad habits that the system would have infused into them. So we expected them to do things differently. And by doing things differently, they would have created a different tone of politics in Tobago, which could have then possibly infected the Trinidad space. But that did not happen.
I'm gonna have to cut you there. I'm sorry. We're over time. But I agree with everything that you said, and I'll make some comments after we come to the break. But Mr. Piggott, I want to thank you very much. I know it wasn't exactly the conversation we planned to have because circumstances kind of dictated new content dropped in our laps. But I want to thank you for being, so open to have these discussions. But we have to break for news on the hour now. When we return, folks, yes, I agree with more or less just about everything that he said. I'll comment on that, and we'll open the phone lines after this here on WESN, your content capital. Talking about, we'll be right back.